You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Do us a favor and like and subscribe and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcast you can listen to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. If you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give that a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. Are you prepared to have that conversation with your kid about a top 5 Ole Miss football team? Yeah, it happened. It really happened. If you look at the AP poll, or as I call it, the non-ball knowers poll, but they did rank Ole Miss in the top 5, and the coaches poll, which is the assistant AD's poll, Ole Miss made a big jump after they took apart the LSU Tigers. Over the weekend, they're number 4 in the AP poll, number 4 in the coaches poll. Ole Miss is at the top of the SEC as far as rankings go, and everybody is kind of hoping that Ole Miss becomes the story moving forward. You can see it with the Trinidad Chambliss, with the Lane Kiffin and the documentary and all of that stuff. They want Ole Miss to make it to the next level. They want that to root for. It is crazy to think about the villain arc that Lane Kiffin had for years, and now he is a sympathetic figure. Listen, Florida, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, anybody that has a job opening is going to put Lane Kiffin on the list because he's SEO catnip. If you put his name there, it's going to do twice as good as it would have done previously. So don't get freaked out if you hear Lane Kiffin's name being bandied about by fans. If they're just trying to be loud, they're just trying to will something to happen. But the reality of this is that, yes, the fans might want it, but the athletic director and the president and the boosters have to want it. And most importantly at all, Lane Kiffin has to want it. And there's not many places across this country that can even afford Lane Kiffin at this point, and even less that gives him the freedom. The point is, don't worry about it and worry about this top 5 ranking. This is unbelievable. And it's the result of several people that played very well for the Ole Miss Rebels in their game. We start with Cam Franklin, Cam Franklin and Will Eccles, they're kind of going, they're doing their development arc right now. They're in the middle of it. They started out this year, they were a little bit slow as far as defensive line. It was moving, everything was moving fast. Cam Franklin and Will Eccles, they struggled a little bit in early games against Georgia State and early games against Kentucky. Everybody talked about the run defense. And, we talked about in the preseason camp that this Ole Miss team will go as far as the front 7 will take them. There was a little bit of a learning curve whenever they started. Cam Franklin, he hasn't gotten home yet, but he is close. And Will Eccles had a Walter Nolan type play against Garrett Nussmeier on Saturday to where he had a sack, the lone sack of the game. These two players basically alternated over the course of the recruiting season, the number 1 player in the state of Mississippi. So whatever service you look at, Ole Miss got the number 1 player in the state of Mississippi. Cam Franklin on the defensive line makes it to where you have to double team. You have to double team him or he will eat you alive. He is a game wrecker. William Eccles, game wrecker. Xavion Harris, we already know how good he is. And we talk about the defensive line needing double teams to keep players off the linebackers, and that is starting to happen. And less explosives are ready to happen as well. But Cam Franklin's game was a very big game. Another one is Kewan Lacey, the running back, had 23 carries, 87 yards. Remember, this is a talented defense that we were going against. He did have a touchdown in the game. That was pretty cool to see, but him averaging about 4 yards per carry on that defense, that is pretty good. And finally, we got to talk about Daquan Wright. Listen, Lane Kiffin found something against LSU that was schematically was set up to where they could gain 3 or 4 yards. Whenever they needed to do it, they could go to it, and Ole Miss did a good job of disguising it through personnel groupings and disguising it through how they line up and through formations. But the reality is, if you ran an outplay, it couldn't be covered. They were nowhere near the ball where it was supposed to be. And the reality in this LSU defense right now, in my opinion, is their strength lies between the hash marks. The defensive line, the safeties are really good. The linebackers are excellent when you consider Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. But outside, when you have PJ Woodland and DJ Pickett, those 2 young guys playing corner, they could be picked on a little bit. And Ole Miss did pick on them. Ole Miss did a lot of work, and some of their best work outside of the hash mark to set up and soften the inside of the hash mark. And Daquan Wright was a huge part of that for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. It should be interesting to see exactly what happens, but I am impressed about the way that Ole Miss was able to systematically take apart LSU. Every phase. I mean, it was a solid performance in every phase, but it wasn't a good performance. If it was a good performance to where Ole Miss played like they did against Arkansas or Ole Miss played like it did against Tulane, it might have looked exactly the same because LSU was not good offensively, and Ole Miss's defense is kind of starting to figure it out a little bit. It's going to be imperative that against Washington State, they take that to the next step. They're starting to make explosive plays and affect the quarterback. They need to take that to the next level, and I think they will. Against Washington State, Wazoo's coming into town the week after next. We have a bye week coming up this week, which honestly I need if we're going to be real about it. But next week we'll start talking about Washington State, and then we'll start talking about the game in Athens, Georgia against the Georgia Bulldogs. So we'll see exactly what that looks like for Ole Miss coming up. In our final segment, we're going to dive into the leans and locks across the SEC for Week 6. We break down the latest FanDuel lines that you need to know right after this. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. And another big moment on Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. He's leading the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local panel of experts, which I have been on at certain points this season. It is a college football preview that only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Also put it on my YouTube page on late Friday, so you can catch it there as well. So hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.